Welcome back, everyone. I'm putting this video together today of this beautiful photo of a lily pond and one lily flower. So excited to tackle this one. I did change the composition a little bit in order to have some leading lines into our focal point and blur out some of the scenes in the back or the background. This flower or leaf lily pad here, this lily pad here, I actually made bigger in the drawing so that it can also be, I guess, a secondary focal point if you like. So the big question is, how do we tackle a painting like this? And we've got a beautiful background, which we can easily put in. We know how to do a nice blurry background. The challenge is you've got all these wonderful lily pads that we're going to have to enhance and, add some brightness around the edges as well as some darkness. Oh, there's our black and white. So if I look at the value study, I see that the majority of the white is about 30% of the painting. So I'm probably going to lose a little bit of this white in certain areas because I want the white gone behind here. And, that will reduce it a bit under the 70 to 30 rule, which we're going to abide by today. And I think what we'll do is we'll apply our blue wash all the way down the middle. Then we will apply the yellow wash down the sides. And then we'll add in a bit more blue into the areas that are a bit darker around there. The colors that I'm going to use today, after much debate trying to figure out what would work well, is I'm probably going to use the cobalt. Let me just put this away so I can still see it. I'm probably going to use cobalt blue. I thought of using cerulean, but it granulates quite a bit, and I wasn't sure it would give us that smooth area that we wanted. And the I'll put the reference photo on the video as well. But I decided on Indian yellow. And the reason for that is I have my green mixing chart. And Indian yellow really creates some beautiful greens. Sometimes I find when you paint with greens, they end up being quite dull. And here's ultramarine with that color with Indian yellow. Okay. Today we are going to do this beautiful lily pad painting, and I did change the original composition a little bit in order to make sure that we had 70% of this dark, 30% light, which is apparently the magic combination. And I wanted the lily pad less in the center, so I moved it slightly, and by adding the shadow it kind of leans it towards this way. In fact, I could have leaned the shadow a little bit further if I wanted to, but that's the way we've set it up for today. The big question is, how do you tackle something like this? When I look at it, I'm trying to hold it without getting the light, so let me just turn off the light, that might help. When I look at it, I say to myself, well, the blue background would be important to get in first. And there is these blue highlights around some of the lily pads, which I'd like to keep. The yellow would be good to get in as well. But I'm thinking that it should probably be done in one wash. One option is to go straight through the lily pads as you do this wash and don't worry about painting around them. Another option is to use some masking, and a third option is to actually wet the areas that you want to look, because the background's very blurry, and you could wet the background and use that as your basis. Now, the lily pads are not necessarily darker than the background. So we could get away with doing all this blue and then darker here, because these lily pads are not as noticeable, and try to retain some of this blue around, because I think the challenge in painting around the lily pads, as I've tried it, is it's very difficult to keep it smooth and, you know, flowing. So I might try this time another strategy, which is just to paint around or paint right through the lily pads with the blue. Every time I see a lily pad, it's going to have more blue in it. And so I might just start with the blue wash and do the whole thing in that blue. The other option is to go around it and wet these areas first so that it flows into the wet areas. So there's quite a few options, but let's go with the easiest one, which is the only thing you have to paint around is the actual lily. So in that case, I would probably start with the blues, paint every lily pad a blue color as well, and then start dropping in the yellows and the darks. So we're gonna try that, see how it goes. Before you start the blue overall wash that I'm about to show you on the recording, I thought I would mention that in class we actually decided to use mask and outline some parts of the lily pads, and instead of painting the blue all the way across them, we left them white. And part of the reason I did that, well, there's two reasons. One is I lost the portion of the video where we actually filled in the first layer of color on the lily pads. So we're going to have to redo that again anyway, and I will record the next steps of this. But those are the two options. You can go all the way through, and if you go all the way through, just be careful that you're not, you're remaining quite light where the lily pads are. And one way of doing that is to, you know, wet them beforehand. In this case, we masked them and we left them completely white, which I think might turn out better. But in the end, we'll see what works better. This is a work in process, and we're learning as we go. So hopefully you'll learn along with me. I'm just going to leave this paint that is on my palette. I'm not as worried about the yellow because I think we'll be able to, you know, leave some gaps, some watery parts, that sort of thing in this. Okay. And I want it fairly watery towards the lightest spots. So I want it kind of watery there. So I'm just going to apply some water there. The parts where, and then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around my lily pad. I'm just using plain water here, not worrying about the black, so that I can have this lighter blue that goes up through the painting and out the end. Okay, I'm using my big brush. I'm still getting used to this puppy, but the key here is we want a bead. So we don't have a bead yet. 2 solutions is more paint, more water. We'll add a bit of both. And the other thing I find is if you go back and forth a few times at the top, you kind of establish your bead, and then you can work it down as you go. If you go off the paper, sometimes what happens is you lose the bead to the edge of the paper. So I'm getting close to my lily, and what I'm going to do now is just make sure I have a good bead. Okay, and then I'm going to switch to my smaller brush to go around the lily, but before I do that, I might just add a bit more paint here. I want it basically the same consistency. Okay, so I'm ready to go. Let's make sure there's a bead here. And I've hit the water over there, as you can see, which is good. So I'm just gonna loosely go around it first. I can go right through here. Big brush is probably needed as well, because as I go down here, I want some pretty fast coverage. Okay, so I like what's happening with the wash. It's going on nice and smoothly this time, because I did it earlier and that was not the case. So I need to make sure I have a bead at the end of this. Okay, and you can always spray it, but don't spray around the lily. Okay, and I'm going to pick up the paint and do some of my refinements. I'm starting at the bottom of the lily only because I want to have more control as I get up to the top and less paint. So I'm hoping I'm using up some of my paint as I go. I'll do that here. I'll start at the bottom. So that seems to be working okay. I've got a good bead over here, but I don't really have one anywhere else. Let's just finish this up here. Okay. These Escoda Perla brushes are fantastic for doing fine details. They hold a lot of paint. Okay, now I'll load up again. I'm going to try to finish off this side first. I'm just going back and forth to make sure there's a bead over there. And I can go right through this stuff. And I'm going to mix a little bit more paint. Now this time it's a bit more watery, so I might try to focus more on this area with the watery mix. And if I want it to appear lighter, in certain areas, I can always spray some water on there as well. Okay, well, that seems to be working quite well. I've covered all the areas that I need to. And now I'm just going to take a bit of water, and the areas where I want some yellow in, I could add a little bit of water first. That's just going to create a blossom, so maybe that's not a good idea. Just going to scrape that out a bit. But I'm going to add my yellow in to those areas. I'm going to go right off the page here with that yellow. Okay, add some more yellow in. There's a lot of it over this way. And it's hard to see my pencil drawings now. Not adding any more yellow or water to this yellow. I'm trying to keep the mixture somewhat dry, although I'm going to have to mix a little bit more. So I have to make sure that's nice and dry. It's sticking to the palette. I want it to be drier than the actual paper. I start up here again. Okay, and then there's quite a bit of yellow over in this area. Might be a bit too yellow over in here. Okay, so that's not bad. Okay, there's no yellow in this area. Okay, so that's quite yellow. Now I'm going to mix my yellow with my cobalt blue. And this is still a very sticky mixture. So I don't want to add more water to my paper at this stage. So now I'm just looking for areas that are greener. I'm trying to avoid where the pencil drawings are. Maybe a bit more cobalt. Not going into any water, just adding more cobalt. And this whole area quite dark. The paper is still pretty wet. So that's good. And in some of these, I can leave the blue. So underneath this, right here, there's kind of a blue ring, if you like. So I can leave that little bit of blue there. Now I'm going to go darker. I'm going to add some Imperial Purple to this mix, to the green mix. Okay. I might need a tiny bit of water, so I'm just going to grab some of this off the cobalt blue. It can't be, it has to be thicker than the previous mixes. Okay, so there's a dark spot that goes down here. And as you can see, I'm starting to define some of these. I want to leave this blue going down like this. But I can define a few things here. Okay. Pretty sure this was really hard to see my pencil marks at this stage. Oh, and I think I just went through a lily pad. So it may be better to use a Kleenex when I do that, but it's going to be hard to isolate these. So I'm going to just take a Kleenex and help myself a little bit. by identifying some of these. I'm still going to retain the blue that's there. But I'm able to see the lily pads just a bit better. I think there's another one here. Okay. Actually, there's 3 there. 1, 2, 3. Approximately there. Okay, so back to the green mixture I had. Try to leave some of this blue showing. Okay. There's a bit of this at the edge of this. Okay. And now I need to go darker still, so I'm going to add some indigo to this mix. And I'm also going to add some of that cobalt again. Much darker mixture now. Okay. Still pretty green. Let's see how it's going on the paper now. It's almost like a dry brush effect because this mixture is very thick. Okay. I could probably add a tiny bit more water. I might just give it a little spritz. And that will loosen things up a little bit. Oh, I wasn't adding cobalt. I was adding ultramarine. Okay, so a bit more indigo. Now that I've spritzed it, I can kind of work with a little bit more. Oh, I put a lily pad there. Okay, I don't really like the shape of that one. Maybe we'll get rid of that entirely. Okay, and let's give a little spritz on this side. And it gets quite dark going down over towards here. You can start defining these. And again, it's quite dark over here. I think it needs a bit more of a spread, so I'm just going to put my cloth here. Okay, I like these spots where the blue is showing through. I'm going to keep some of that. And thicken this mixture. It's not really flowing that much, so what I'm trying to do is getting it to move more. I'm going to get a bit more aggressive on my spritzing. should be a little thicker here. Add some more blue color to it. Okay, so I got enough there. Got enough there. This is going to be a lily pad. We probably have enough here. There is something going down here. Okay. This I don't like the shape of, but it is off the edge, so that's probably okay. Now here, I do want a bit of dark to highlight this lily pad. Let that just run down. And then maybe some dark here. Some dark under here. So we're starting to see the flow, but I still think I need a bit more dark. So I'm going to go indigo, cobalt, a real thick mixture here to get some of this showing up. Cobalt, indigo. Okay. All right. I love the blue that's showing through here, so I don't want to lose that. Okay. Oops, my paper is going out of frame. The only other thing I would say is this part up here has a bit more yellow in it, so I'm going to see if I can sneak some yellow on there. I don't know if this is going to work, but let's put it in a few spots up there. Yeah, okay. And these will be green, so I think, you know, my issue is I don't want too much of this blue showing through, but all of these will be green in the end anyway. So I think we're probably all right. Oh, that's very strong. That's very strong. Rinse it and go in with some thick cobalt over here. I do thick cobalt in a few areas. Maybe here. I've got some good blue there, but I could do thicker cobalt as you get to the bottom. Although this part here is a lily pad. Okay. I do like it when the water closest to you is darker. I don't want to add too much water to this paper at this point, so we might come back and do that. Because if we put too much water on it, then we're going to create blossoms. So I'll just lightly spritz that. Okay, not bad. It's blurry. This part is a little bit too dominant. And once we fill in the rest of the lily pads, then we should be okay. A lot of thinking gone into that, but now we have to let it dry, and then we'll come back and start shaping our lily pads. Okay, so we are going to start on the next stage, which is our lily pads. We've already given them a coat of blue, and for some of them they're green. These two are quite green, and these two are quite purple, and these are quite purple as well, these ones that go up here. The top one is kind of green. I'm just calling up my photo again. So what I did earlier is I just tried to mimic some of the colors that we would have in here, and we probably need to apply a bit of purple to each of these. So that's something to think about as well. Maybe we'll start with this one here because it has some yellow in it. It's going to have the shading over it. It's got quite a bit of black around it. We'll do a little bit of the black initially, but maybe we'll do the black first. I'm just thinking this through because that's going to help identify where the edges are. And one of the advantages of the black is where you see any of this blue popping up, we can do the black inside the line a little bit to show that. So that should be interesting. This is this one here. So maybe I'll just go pretty light with the black initially. Well, it's not actually black, it's my indigo. And then that's going to help us see where all of these are. So I can see some in my pencil marks. These little lines that go in are important because they're directional, and it helps us see the shape of the lily pad. So I'm just putting in enough lines so that I can actually see where the lily pad is. So that's really my objective here, is to get those identified. This one here, this is definitely here. The ones that are closer to you are rounder. As they get further away, they get more oval. The complex part of this is some of them are actually different shapes. They're a different type of lily pad. So this goes along here, and this goes kind of out here. So I'm just coloring this in because this is going to be quite dark in the end anyway. There's a little bit of burnt sienna as well. So this, oh, I did that a bit too far down, but that's okay. And then this really goes in like this. And this part here joins up to this. I'm just putting a few of those in, and then we'll go around to this one. I'm going a bit inside the line on these so that there's less blue around this one. Okay, and that's enough to help me know where it is. And then this one here. There's no blue around this one, but we could make some. Okay. It looks like I put one there, even though there doesn't appear to be one there. I put one there, which I guess is fine because this one could be highlighted in blue. One there, and then this one up here. So I'm trying to make sure that these are more oval. Now this one's an entirely different shape. Okay. Good enough for that. And then we don't really, oh, we have this big one here. I was going to say, we don't really have one there, but we do. Really, it goes more into this part here. Okay. And then we have some small ones. Now this I don't have enough blue to work with, so I'm not sure whether I'm going to put that one in. I could put it over here. So let's do that. Okay, so there's one there. And I didn't put any in here, but I'm going to do that. Okay. So that's about it. So I have identified where they are. And the first thing I'm going to do is wet the lily pad. Let's start with some less significant ones. That way if we mess up, we can just blur them out. Lost edges. So I'm going to start up here. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to clean my brush. And I'm going to wet this down. And that way I have something to work with. Now that one is green. So since we already have blue on there, I'm just going to add some yellow. I'm not going to go too close to the edges because I want to keep that there. And I'm going to add my green mixture. Let's make our green mixture down here. So this is a bit darker. Well, not much darker. Okay, I think we need a bit more fresh paint here, so let's just get that going. A mixing brush and pause. Well, actually, I'm not going to pause it. Okay, there's my cobalt. Which I probably won't need a huge. Actually, I'll make this my green because it looked a bit green to me anyway. Okay, that's my cobalt. These are going to be about a value 3, not sticky, but getting thicker. Okay, and then I'm going to add some yellow into that. This one here. Okay. And then I want a darker green over here with my, there. So we have a darker green, a bit more cobalt there. Okay. We'll keep this spot for indigo. And then we need a spot for our imperial purple. So put that right up here. Yellow does neutralize purple. So the fact that I have the yellow right next to it is not optimum, but I think we've got enough there. And then I'll just clean off this yellow a bit so that we can put a fresh load of that there. Okay. And then I'm going to go clean my brush. So I'm going to go pause this, my brush and my water.